WADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The UN Security Council meets on Friday over the restructuring of MINUSMA at the request of Antonio Guterres. Sierra Leone's main opposition political party, APC, calls for dismissal of the electoral commissioners ahead of the June 24 elections.
We demand that Mr. Mohamed Kone and all electoral commission resign forthwith to be replaced by an independent, internationally accredited team of electoral commissioners and experts.
Health authorities in Ghana confirm the outbreak of anthrax disease.
This outbreak is about the whole region. It is about where the meat supply of this country are coming from that end. And so we should not take it for granted.
And Guinea's Magistrate Association denounces the Justice Minister's newly announced measure for misconduct. Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Tofik Abdulnasir with Newslink.
Thank you for joining us. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali, MINUSMA, according to the UN chief, remains an invaluable force in the fragile state years after its first deployment to help restore peace. However, the UN Security Council is meeting tomorrow, Friday, June 16, to discuss the reconfiguration of the peacekeeping force as requested by Antonio Guterres. The meeting comes ahead of a vote scheduled for June 29 on the terms of the renewal of the $1.2 billion annual budget mission, which expires on June 30, 2023. As Abdullah Hassan reports, MINUSMA currently has over 11,000 soldiers and more than 1,300 on a peacekeeping mission in Mali.
The UN Secretary-General recommended on Tuesday to the Security Council to reconfigure the UN mission in Mali to concentrate it with constant staff on a limited number of priorities to make it more effective. Guterres said while there is no doubt that Mali is entering a crucial period for the return to constitutional order, the continued presence of MINUSMA remains invaluable. He reiterated that the status quo cannot be an option neither for the Malian people who continue to suffer unspeakable violence, nor for the international community, which has for a decade heavily invested in stabilizing the country. In this context, the UN chief recommends extending MINUSMA's mandate for 1 year while maintaining the number of authorized personnel at their current level. As the security situation has steadily worsened and peacekeepers are regularly targeted, the UN Secretary-General made proposals include an increase in troops to a total withdrawal of troops if key conditions were not fulfilled. The intermediate option suggested by Guterres also includes the closure of certain camps such as that of Bear in the Timbuktu region and the coordinated withdrawal from certain areas in the Kidal region. The Secretary-General notes that the Malian authorities have made it known on several occasions that none of the options proposed meets the expectations or the priorities of the Malian people, a negotiation that perhaps will take center stage on Friday.
Abdullah Hassan reporting there. In Guinea, judges are angry following a decision by the Minister of Justice. Alphonse Charles Wright has announced that from now on, any magistrate suspended for professional misconduct will have his or her salary cut. This is out of the question for the Magistrates Association, which is pointing to an article in the law on the status of magistrates that stipulates that suspension does not entail forfeiture of the right to salary. Imoredet has the rest of the details in this report by our Conakry correspondent, Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Abalde.
The tug of war between the Minister of Justice and magistrates continues. In a new notice, Alphonse Charles Wright has decided to freeze the salary of any magistrate suspended for professional misconduct.
There is now a standard set of internal regulations that will apply to all persons, and when a magistrate is suspended and found guilty of professional misconduct, his or her salary will be retained.
While some see the decision by the Minister of Justice as a way in restoring order in the judicial sector, the Association of Magistrates of Guinea insists that it would not pass. On the other hand, legal experts in the country argue that this measure is not a violation of labor law. Here is Fayimba Mara.
His battle is first and foremost to restore the image of the justice system. With all the dysfunctions we have seen regarding all the cases of deaths in prisons, and it's sickening to the point that the minister is standing up to all this. Because what we need to consider is how to get magistrates to be vigilant and respect the rules of procedure to the letter. When the minister then decides to freeze the salary of indelicate magistrate who finds himself in this situation, it's hardly surprising, because when it comes to work, it's work that pays. So if you are not on the job, there is no reason why you should be paid a salary.
When contacted, the Association of Guinean Magistrates declined to comment on the substance of the Justice Minister's decision. However, Mohamed Jawara, another legal expert who remarked on the matter, pointed out that Article 39 of the law on the status of magistrates stipulates that suspension does not entail deprivation of rights.
That report was filed by Conakry correspondent Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Abalde and voiced by Imo Redet. Let's take you to Sierra Leone, where the leader and presidential candidate of the main opposition All People's Congress APC party is called for the resignation of the current board of electoral commissioners at the electoral on power. Further announcing a 72-hour ultimatum, Dr. Samura Kamara at a press conference asked that the board be replaced by an international independent body. Patrick Salia in Freetown was there for WADR.
The opposition APC party, Kamara says, rejects the loaned ballot boxes from Guinea and accused the Electoral Commission, which he said should be an arbiter, to have since the start of the electioneering process already rigged it. The presidential flag bearer said they are comforted by their mammoth support across the country, but have resolved that enough is enough.
We demand that Mr. Mohamed Kone and all electoral commission resign forthwith, to be replaced by an independent, internationally accredited team of electoral commissioners and experts who will conduct fresh electoral processes. To date, ECSL has demonstrated unprecedented lack of transparency, inclusiveness, and accountability.
Meanwhile, National Chairman of the People's Movement for Democratic Change PMDC, speaking to WADR, confirmed a lawsuit against the Electoral Commission and its chief at the Supreme Court for two main reasons. Here is Tony Songa.
One, doubting the qualification of the commissioner, because according to the laws of this nation, you cannot hold such positions whilst you receive money from consolidated fund without resigning within 12 months, which he did not. Secondly, regards the election campaigns calendar, our party was disenfranchised from campaigning in some of the areas because by law, according to the Public Elections Act, every presidential candidate is supposed to campaign all over the country by the calendar. We are denied those facilities, opportunities, because they say we did not supply in candidates from some of those districts that we have been disenfranchised from.
The Electoral Commission, however, declared its determination to carry on with conduct of the elections in a transparent manner. Zainab Mosire is the Electoral Commissioner for the Western Region.
And be rest assured that the Commission is committed to conducting a free, fair, credible elections, regardless of the pressure. We refuse to be intimidated. We definitely stand tall and continue to work in line with the dictates of the law.
The June 24 general election is Sierra Leone's fifth general elections since the return of multi-party democracy in 1996 under the 1991 constitution. No fewer than 3.3 million voters have registered for the polls in which President Julius Maada Bio is seeking a re-election. Patrick Salia, WADR News, Freetown.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Legislators in the lower chambers of Nigeria's National Assembly have expressed concerns over this year's flood predictions. They are urging government at all levels and concerned agencies to take immediate action and prevent the loss of lives and destruction of properties. WADR's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar reports.
Last year, many states in Nigeria experienced devastating floods, resulting in the loss of lives and widespread destruction, a disaster that left scars on thousands of lives, especially women and children. In this regard, members of the House of Representatives are calling for the implementation of urgent measures to mitigate the impact of potential floods this year, as the disaster agency warns 28 out of the 36 states are flood-prone. To minimize damage and the potential loss of lives, Femi Bajabiamila, a member of the lower chambers, says the time to act is now.
That Nigeria is yet to recover from the 2022 flood, which affected more than 4 million Nigerians, displaced over 2 million people, caused the death of 665 people, damaged about 355,986 houses, and destroyed an estimated total of 944,989 hectares of farmland.
With last year's floods still fresh in the minds of Nigerians, the lawmakers say the urgency to address this issue has never been greater. Sada Soli is a lawmaker from Katsina State.
Some of our communities are suffering from what happened last year. And because of the complacency of our governments, from the local governments up to the federal government, there is no much enough information to the general public. And then the complacency of some of our people living along the water lines.
The legislators are urging national and subnational governments to allocate adequate resources to the national and state emergency management agencies to effectively implement preventive measures. They also emphasized the importance of educating communities on flood preparedness, including the creation of emergency evacuation plans. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
In Ghana, an outbreak of anthrax in the northern part of the country has raised a public health concern about the disease spreading across the country. According to the Ministry of Health, 4 cattle and 20 sheep have died since May 20, 2023, and 100 people are estimated to have eaten the meat of infected livestock, with 1 suspected death. WADR's Atiwin Mbelolosin in Accra tells us more.
In Ghana, the recent outbreaks of anthrax started in Talensi and Binduri, both in the Upper East region, and fears are rife that the disease, which is deadly for humans and animals, could spread. To this effect, the minority in Parliament has called on the government to release resources to fight the outbreak. Mark Kirk Nawane is a medical doctor and lawmaker, and he has been speaking on the minority's behalf.
This outbreak is about the whole region. It is about where the meat supply of this country are coming from that end. And so we should not take it for granted. What is happening is that even though the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture through their veterinary services have come in and they've put in some measures, it appears that they are not putting in enough resources.
On the part of the Deputy Director of the National Food Safety Laboratory of Veterinary Services, Benjamin Kisisasu, he says that they have so far been able to confine the outbreak to the region, but 10 more districts within the Upper East region have been affected.
It was unexpected because looking at the practice in terms of our animal production system, they go for grazing. So they may move from one community to the other within those affected areas. And we are happy to say that so far so good. The outbreak is only in Upper East, and we are hoping it still stays there.
The anthrax disease is primarily caused by spore-forming bacteria, Bacillus anthracis, which produces resilient spores capable of surviving in environments for extended periods. Animals typically contract anthrax through ingestion or inhalation of spores while grazing on contaminated pastures or drinking contaminated water. Livestock such as cattle, sheep, and goats act as reservoirs for anthrax, posing a risk to people who come into direct contact with them or their byproducts. Veterinary officers have been directed to commence anthrax vaccination of the categories of ruminants immediately. Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. The UN Security Council meets on Friday over the restructuring of MINUSMA at the request of Antonio Guterres. Sierra Leone's main opposition political party, APC, calls for dismissal of the electoral commissioners ahead of the June 24 elections. Health authorities in Ghana confirmed the outbreak of anthrax disease, and Guinea's Magistrate Association denounces the Justice Minister's newly announced measure for misconduct. Still ahead is the guest interview, press review, and sports news. Stay tuned.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Several experts in the financial and IT sectors are meeting in the Ivorian capital for the 5th edition of the Forum of the International Anti-Corruption Alliance. Participants from at least 100 countries are attending the forum that ends on Friday, June 16, 2023. Declaring the conference opened on Thursday, Côte d'Ivoire's Vice President Tiamoko Mielti Kone welcomed the initiative by the World Bank Group, which sets the platform for the discourse of governance issues and the fight against corruption.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Joining us now is Atiwin Mbela Lawson in Accra with the major headlines from the Ghanaian dailies.
Greetings from Accra, Ghana. Welcome to the newspaper review for today, Thursday, June 15, 2023. Let's start the review by looking at the headlines in the Daily Graphic newspaper. The screaming headline, Media Regulation, Experts Oppose More Powers for the National Media Commission. Then we have some banner headlines. Electoral Commission sets October 3 for district-level elections, and farmer kills wife in front of their children. Very unfortunate there. Two other banner headlines. Road maintenance resumes to address inconveniences, and Bui Power adds 5 MW floating solar plant. So those are the headlines in the Daily Graphic newspaper. From the Daily Graphic newspaper, let's move to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. The screaming headline, Ghana come back $4.2 billion annually to resolve current economic crisis. That's according to the Institute for Energy Security. Then some banner headlines. Government rolls out alternative livelihood program for 8,000 fishers during closed season. And then the final banner headline here. Judgment in fresh start of Dr. Opuni case on July 3. So those are the banner headlines and the screaming headlines in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let's now go to the Daily Guide newspaper. The screaming headline, D-Day for Aisha Huang. And for those who don't recall, Aisha Huang is the Chinese national, is in Ghana and accused of engaging in large-scale illegal mining. And she was deported, found her way back into the country, has been arrested, and is now facing trial. Then some banner headlines, pay or take, PPAs cruel. That's according to the majority in Parliament. And then we have another banner headline, Fisheries Ministry cracks whip on illegal fishing. And the final banner headline, a very unfortunate one, 3 children burnt to death. So those are the headlines in the Daily Guide newspaper. From the Daily Guide newspaper, let's look at the Daybreak newspaper. The screaming headline, Office of the Special Prosecutor demands access to ICUM's platform, GRA officials panic. Interesting headline there. Another banner headline, Baumia files nomination Friday. Then more than 75,000 kids in Ghana are engaged in economic activity, according to the Ghana Statistical Services. And then finally, the last banner headline in the Daybreak newspaper, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin predicts Baumia versus Mahama for 2024 presidential election. And that's how we wrap up our overview of the headlines in Ghana. My name is Atiwin Mbela Lawson. I'm here in Accra. Back to you in the studio in Dakar.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
With the general elections in Sierra Leone less than 2 weeks away, the leader and presidential candidate of the primary opposition party, the All People's Congress (APC), has demanded the resignation of the current board of electoral commissioners at the electoral regulatory body. Dr. Samura Kamara, during a press conference, issued a 72-hour ultimatum and called for the board to be replaced by an internationally independent entity. Joining us now is Mohammed Kamara, the Deputy National Publicity Officer of the APC, who will tell the reasoning behind the party's decision to make this demand.
Well, according to his statement yesterday given at the New Brookfields Hotel, it was effusive that it is now crystal clear that the democratic pace of our nation is being blocked by this particular regime, and we've experienced what we refer to as state capture of institutions that are supposed to protect democracy. And throughout the electioneering process, since its inception, since the beginning, all programs, all the steps that are supposed to be followed have been marginalized by ECSL and by other state institutions. So it was on that light that the way and manner at which things are going, it deemed it prudent for God and for country that he should address the nation. The first concern he expressed was the constitution, the way and manner the ECSL and management and their operations were constituted, the way the chairman of ECSL was appointed. Because according to Section 32(4) of the 1991 Constitution of the People of Sierra Leone, it specifies as to how the appointment should be done of an electoral commissioner, wherein political parties are to be consulted. That is exactly what was written in the Constitution, in consultation with political parties, which in the first place the president did not follow. And even when the president insisted in pronouncing Mohamed Kone, the APC ensured that it sent a letter reminding the president of the modus operandi in the constitution, but the president did not give heed to it. We also look at the manipulation of the electoral data. We've also seen the problem on the voter verification registration process. We've seen people with doing the verification process. We've seen people with age 200 years old. We've seen faces of teenagers in the ID cards. And we have ID cards where 90% of the citizens cannot identify their own faces.
So you have mentioned so many things, including some allegations about the Electoral Commission blocking the democracy of the country, which you have outlined some problems regarding the voter registration exercise. So have you approached the Electoral Commission, all these problems that you have pointed out? Because the political parties and the Electoral Commission, you are both stakeholders of the country. And in this case, you are both involved. So did you approach them? Did your party approach the Electoral Commission, citing all these problems?
There are correspondences to the effect that we've been writing the ECSL, and not just correspondences. We've also approached them vis-a-vis. We've also approached them face-to-face. And in most cases, there is a committee called the Special Liaison Committee where they meet. I want to tell you that whenever we approach them, they will give you the confidence that we've seen your concerns, we've heard your concerns, and we are going to look at it and look at them. And all of a sudden, immediately after that meeting, they will arrogantly ignore you as if you are not important into the democratic processes. And over again, this is exactly how they have been treating the people of this country with total neglect. So when it comes to approaching them, we've done all we can approaching them because we believe that negotiations and dialogue are the way for democracy to thrive. But all they have manifested is that which we refer to as pompous arrogance beyond civil imagination. And if that is so, it has now become a concern that we are left with no choice rather than to protect the rights of our citizens.
When you talk about protecting the rights of your citizens. What do you mean by that? Because you wouldn't want to jeopardize with the security of the country, just like you mentioned earlier. And elections, if you don't adhere to the rules of the Electoral Commission, or if you don't adhere to the rules of the elections, do you think there's going to be peace? Don't you think that is rather inciting what I may call violence in the country?
As far as we are concerned, we've made it very clear that we are going to explore every legal means within the democratic spectrum to ensure that we protect our people's vote.
So do you think there is enough time for you to seek legal redress? Do you think there is time? Because election is just less than 2 weeks away.
Yes, like I said earlier on, as far as we are concerned, there is enough time for us. That is exactly why we keep exploring all legal means. We've made our demands and we've told ECSL that within 72 hours, if these demands are not met, the APC will call for the resignation for the Electoral Commissioner.
Mohammed Kamara is the All People's Congress APC Deputy National Publicity Officer. In sports, FIFA Secretary General Fatuma Samoura, who made history as the first woman and non-European to hold the position in 2016, will be stepping down at the end of this year to prioritize spending more time with her family. The organization made the announcement on Wednesday. With a distinguished career at the United Nations, the 60-year-old Senegalese was appointed in May 2016, following the election of Italian Swiss Gianni Infantino as FIFA president. Her tenure played a vital role in restoring FIFA's credibility amidst a series of scandals, as stated in FIFA's official statement. In a move to put an end to speculation about her position, Fatuma Samoura decided to primitively disclose her resignation, which she plans to make official to the FIFA Council next week. She expressed her intention to dedicate herself to her family in the coming year. And that's it for sports. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County. In Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Inyas Bilimu has been on the console, and Mustafa Sek has been streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. Do interact with us via social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tofik Abdulnasir. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music. Get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.